totally vulnerable. Oh my God, put an angel on earth just for you. Just could rescue you from the depths of hell. And you wouldn't know what it's like to be her angel.
Right, so today we are, oh, this is very shaky. Maybe I'll set this up somewhere. Right, so here my task is basically to try and gut out all the books that are up here. Most of them I've read, most of them I'm probably most likely never going to look at. Some of them have been given to me that I will most definitely never look at, and some are just kind of ones I enjoy and just want to keep in stores. So we kind of need to figure out which one's which, and since there's nothing else to do during lockdown, this is it. This is going to be what we're doing. So I thought while I was doing this, it might be interesting to see what kind of books are up here, because quite frankly I don't even remember. So going through the ones I've already picked out, for some reason I've got a B-roll book. For some reason in my family you can't own a kitchen without owning one of these books. Then we've got Focus by Jurgen Wolf. Now I am super bad for procrastinating. As soon as I start one project, it's the last thing I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about everything else I want to do. I can really struggle to keep use of that word. So I think I picked this up to try and see how I could cure that, and I still haven't got around to reading that book. So right, so in terms of non-fiction, here's a couple that I found. Hopefully you can read them. Go through it very quickly. Tony Robbins, Money, Master the Game. I read that while I was backpacking around Japan, and it is a hefty read, but I would still highly recommend it. It is totally worth your time looking into that book. Power of Habit, really good at understanding how we can continue to push through when we really struggle, even just keep focused on things. First 20 Hours by, I think it's Josh Kaufman. This is basically about skill acquisition and how to rapidly gain them and what to focus on and how to basically reverse engineer learning anything. The examples aren't the best in the book for every application, but it's still worth a read in my opinion. 4 Hour Work Week. I love the 4 Hour books by Tim Ferriss. A lot of his newer books I'm not so keen on, but between this, the 4 Hour Body and the 4 Hour Chef, it just gives you a totally different perspective on how to look at life, how to sculpt what you want to do, and really prioritize what you want out of life. Then we got Structures, or Why Things Don't Fall Down, and basically it's a really good book if you're an up-and-coming engineer. For me personally, I read it just after I finished my degree, and there's a great section at the end focusing on the importance of design. Now, usually, like myself, a lot of engineers don't really care about art, don't really see the point or the purpose in it, but basically it speaks about how a lot of engineering aspects come out of inspiration and the imaginative right side of the brain. And if you're permanently just living in everything that's only developed through left side, it will just reduce what you use on the right side, and that's how we lose the ability to innovate, and basically how design plays an important role in how you maintain innovation going forward, which is how we as a race got to where we are today. And then obviously the classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People, is one of those books I think absolutely everyone should read. Similar book I found to The Power of Habit is the Marshmallow Test. Look, there's a nice wee marshmallow there. And it's a similar principle, but it talks about how to put off instant gratification for a greater reward in the long run. And both books I found they're quite good to read one after the other, because one gives you a greater understanding of the other. So I would start with this one first and then go into The Power of Habit. They kind of repeat themselves in some areas, but it's interesting because it always gives you a fuller understanding of the concept. Right, so I'm gonna have to move this. I am crouching and my knees are in so much pain right now. Just consistently, there's just not enough room above me, so I'm just consistently having to stay on my knees, and my knees don't like it. Onto fiction. Now I really struggle to sleep at night. I'm not a comfortable sleeper, I always struggle. So I always find it important to read something before I go to bed to get my brain set into going to sleep. And the best way I find to do that is through fiction. I did try non-fiction before bed for a while, but it got me thinking about too much stuff, so I find the release of fiction helps me a lot easier. Sometimes gives me some interesting dreams afterwards, but that's by the by. So to begin with, we've got The Martian, a great short read, especially with the pseudo-physics and engineering in it. Great read, would recommend. Nice and simple. If you're an aspiring rigger, or even just a general another engineering book, Paul Carter, Don't Tell Mum I Work on the Rigs. Some interesting insights actually into working on the rigs. Then my folks went through a phase where for some reason, even though I'd never read any of his books, they just assumed I love Neil Gaiman books. So this is a couple of them there. They're all very good actually. I would thoroughly recommend anyone read Neil Gaiman, especially his older stuff. I'm sure there's another couple of books somewhere. And yeah, good read. I would recommend all of these. And then we've got Dune. I think there's a movie of it in production. I'm sure it comes out this year, probably not with COVID at the moment, but sure it's due to come out. I would maybe give it a read beforehand, because obviously you want to read the book before you see the movie and not the other way around. I wasn't the biggest fan of it. It was a bit slow, a bit like Star Wars if you take away the lightsaber fights really. It's just all the inner politics and inner workings. But if that's your game, go ahead. And now we come to one of my favourite things that is up here. It's this old Harry Potter book. It's the third one, The Prisoner of Azkaban. Now the reason it's my favourite is because if you can see that, it's signed by J.K. Rowling herself. Me and my sister got to go meet her when she was in Dundee, and it was just after the fourth book came out, so she was doing book signings. And the reason, me as like a tiny little youngster, I thought it would be interesting. Everyone was obviously there with either the first book or the fourth book as it had just come out. I was just about the only person who came with this, so to me it felt super unique that I had something signed that next to no one else there had, because everyone had the copies of the similar books and I was the one that was different. Oh, right, I need to come out of there. Oh, it gets too hot up there, too hot, too dark, and my back's killing me. So, we're back in the land of the living again. Right, so a couple other items that I found bringing everything back down. First one was, look at this. The Men's Health Big Book of Exercises. I don't even know when I bought that. I must have been like 13 or something. And as you can tell, it's worked pretty well. At this rate, by the time I'm 30, I might have one ab, you know. I'm getting rid of this book. Oof, I had to jump off, it's too hot now. What I also did find was, wait for it, all of these management books. Look at all that. I've not even read half of them. Why? Because they're all more or less about the same thing, and there's only so much that you can read. But basically, I read this YU. That's kind of useful because that's for job interviews and I suck at those, so it's worth knowing what kind of questions and how to answer them. That's a good book. Psychometric testing. I hate psychometric testing. It's the worst thing. I don't even know why companies use it. All it does is it just uses some algorithm, gives you choices, sometimes choices that you might not even choose yourself in that situation. You don't get to justify why you chose those, and basically it's just there and to rule you out, and I hate them. I hate them. They should get rid of them. I don't know why they exist. That book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, apparently it's really good. It's such a slog, so unless you actually are in charge of a business or something, it's a very slow read and it's very awkward. I never finished it because you've got nothing to apply it to. Whatever that is. How to get a job you'll love. Probably very spammy. More interview stuff. Honestly, if interviews were that easy, because everyone needs a job, but if interviews were really that hard, nobody would get them. Why are there multiple and multiples of books on just how to get a job? More psychometric testing. This time it's the Dummies book. This one was actually quite helpful. Whatever that's supposed to mean. imaginative title. This was actually kind of interesting, but I don't remember what it was about, so my bad. Time management. Whoever the hell this guy is. Done with those books. So following that escapade up in the loft, there's actually quite a few books that I'm quite glad were still there. I wish I had done that kind of clear out maybe 6 weeks ago when the lockdown started. 6 weeks is such a long time, by the way. So basically 6 weeks ago, lots of stuff that's useful that I can read during lockdown, which is great because I'm starting to run out of stuff to do. So let's have a look. So to begin with, there's some like exploration books that look quite interesting. There's Wild Swimming. I would say once lockdown's over. Pools unfortunately still won't be open for months yet, I reckon. So somewhere you can go that's remote, there's no one there, you can do a little bit of swimming. It's right up my alley, especially with summer right around the corner. Next is The World Great Adventure Treks, or Greatest. Now, I really want to do that. I'm a big fan of hiking and climbing and Monroeing, all that sort of hill walking jargon. I am a big fan of. So again, once all this is over, this gives me, will hopefully give me the opportunity of stuff to go, because as soon as we're allowed out of lockdown and everything can return to normal, I intend to not be in the house until Christmas. This book, Business Fundamentals for Engineers. I think I bought this at uni. I didn't really read too much into it. I think it might be useful, but I think it's more for students, so I might have a quick glance. If it's useful, read it a bit more. If it's not useful, it's getting binned. Then I found this bad boy, Overcoming Gravity. Now this is actually highly recommended on a lot of websites, and I must have bought this back when I was a teenager, so it's probably been updated since then. But this, especially since we don't have access to weights unless you're lucky enough to have bought some or owned some before the whole lockdown situation, is basically it's about how to gain strength and be able to do cool movements just under gravity, so aka most likely gymnastics. Now the one thing I do like that's similar to this, you can probably find it free online, is a lot of it is similar to like prison workouts, because it was the same issue with prisoners, got nothing to do, no weights, so they use gravity in order to strengthen themselves. And a lot of this seems kind of similar, but focuses more on the technique and what you should be looking for and how to strengthen so you can get to that next step. So that's definitely getting a read. And the last two it's basically just two mangas. All that, so come on, focus, there we go. That are in both English and French. And basically in one of Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Chef, I believe it is, he talks about how the easiest way he found to learn languages was one, physically go to the country where you physically have to speak it and there's no other option, and two, an option that he found that was quite useful was kind of reading mangas in native language and the language you're trying to learn. And it's because in those books it's more of a conversational tone than a physical book, which is more written word than spoken. And because you've got the English and what's very close to it, the translation in another language, is you can start to refer both together, and if you're on your own, don't have someone in that language to speak to, it allows you to immerse in a conversation and try and understand how it all works. Especially French, when they have all the annoying stuff after each word. So that's also on the list. Right, so I realised while I was editing this video that I didn't actually finish the video. So basically this is just going to be a bit of a sign off. The reason I went through that was because I thought it would be quite interesting to see what I've read over the years, and since the rest of you are also in lockdown, it might give you one or two ideas of things you might want to go off and read yourself. Some of those books I would highly recommend, but again, it's up to you. It's your time. See what you want to read, see what you're interested to, and I'll see you in the next one.